Okay, it wouldn't go away. Hello, it is Tuesday. Welcome to the Horror Syndicate Discourse. We are discussing um, our next host from now on. I'll be no. Anyway, we'll be discussing Rosemary's Baby tonight. We're gonna just jump right into it. We are down a couple of guys due to snowstorms and taxes and all that other bullcrap. So tonight we're well, Jared could join if the snow lets up, but it doesn't sound like it's going to. It's heading my way. Eventually, it sounds like it'll head Nate's way and all the way up to Seth. So maybe are you supposed to get snow too again? Fantastic. This weather this year, anyway. But
Mhm.
we're going to talk about a movie that takes place in New York City. Rosemary's Baby came out in 1968, directed by Roman Polanski. It's a really it's not talked about very often in the horror community. And it's when I started the Horror Syndicate in 2016, I thought to myself, I'm like, oh man, I love this movie. I'm sure everybody talks about it, and I love that movie, and I'm sure everybody talks about it. And this is one of the ones that I expected to be a big fan base, and there's not really. But I mean, the people like it, but people don't talk about it as much as Jason, of course. But am I wrong in thinking that? You guys find that there's not a big fan base, or am I off base?
I guess because of the age of it now, it's just one of those movies where younger generations aren't digging on it. It is, we talk about the elevated horror. Well, this movie falls under elevated horror, I guess, if you're going to use that term, because it's definitely a movie that is about the build up more though than anything. And like the novelist Ira said that the suspense before the horror shows up is what's the most suspenseful part of a movie,
Yeah.
of a story. And it's true. Like this movie, watching it, I was glad we. Honestly, this is a movie I'd only seen maybe 3 times before watching it yesterday in preparation, and I'm glad we did it because generally I'll watch a film just to watch it, and but when we do these shows, we're really dissecting and analyzing it and paying attention to all that's going on. And it was the first time I really watched it that closely, where I went, "Wow, this isn't about Satanism or witches or anything. Like this is totally about something else." And I think the reason, the thing that it's about, is not necessarily what your general horror fan is wanting out of horror. It's very much a social commentary about uh, women and how society treats women, and how men treat women, and how uh, uh, I just there's a lot there, but it's not. I don't think people watch it that intensely or that closely, or
No.
thinking about what's really going on in that movie. So when they watch it, they go, "This isn't scary. This is boring," and or "This is stupid." Like obviously we know what's going to happen. It's so predictable, that kind of thing. Which again, that comes, like, people will say, "Well, that movie was predictable," but in 1968, it wasn't. Like this was totally, like, every time when I first saw it and I hear the guy Roman say, "God is dead, the devil lives," like
Yeah.
that must have made people shit their pants, like in 1968, like in Christian America, to hear that in a film. These people celebrating the death of God and the rise of Satan, hell Satan. I mean, it had like,
The year one. Yes.
yeah, like that is such an alarming, upsetting moment. Uh, but that it may not even be real in the movie, you know. But you know, I don't know. I don't know why. I think Romero's, like, when you talk about '60s, Romero's Night of the Living Dead and Psycho are probably the two that most horror fans celebrate more than this one. That this is just as good as those two films, if not better than those two films in some ways. And I think this movie was a movie that transcended the genre and was really popular in just film criticism and film cinephile culture in any way. Like Roman Polanski was like the hottest filmmaker in the world after this thing.
Yeah. It's my favorite movie of the '60s. I know I love Psycho, and I've been compiling my list of top 50 horror movies, my favorites, and it's number 4 of all of my favorite movies. And I don't see how anybody couldn't like it. Now, back in high school when I first saw it, I was able to show it to almost everybody who came over to the house. I was like, "Hey, we got to watch this movie. I want to see what you think." And everybody seemed to like it. I told 2 people about it the last couple of days, and they both seemed to like it. Both were female, also. So I don't know. Maybe it's because we're older. Does Nathan have? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, this is a spoof shirt from Lee Howard, the artist. He made these. One of them I want to get. He's got John Carpenter's Christmas. I can't remember what it says. No one comes ho ho home, or he came ho ho home. He made one recently of Hellraiser that says Heckraiser. Like Clive Barker's Heckraiser. But yeah,
it's Rosemary Baby shirt.
That's one of the Atomic Cotton, Erica stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw this shirt and I had to have it immediately. I love the movie so much.
I need a Rosemary's movie or shirt.
The Birds is a weird, underrated 60. Yeah, The Birds is good. I think it is. It's super dated though. But yeah, Seth, what about you and Rosemary's Baby? What's your situation?
Well, just going back to what you were asking, I think it's mainly because I think most horror fans, I mean, when most people want to watch a horror movie, they want to watch something a little bit more fast paced, maybe something a little bit more with adrenaline. And this is a very slow burn, very suspense driven, character driven tale. So I don't think it's definitely one of the greats. But I think it's just because maybe it may not be as rewatchable as some of the other ones, as some of the other horror movies that we all know and love. Maybe that's why it doesn't get talked about a lot. And, to go on to Nate's point too about like at the time it came out, I mean, this was like 10 years after the motion picture production code came to an end? Somewhere around that. So it was like at the time that they did this movie, it wasn't too far away from when they were very strict with what they could do in movies. So, I was watching this last night and I was just thinking about the whole ending thing, the whole ending scene. And I'm like, that must have been really something for the audience back then.
Yeah.
Not only the villains win, it's very, anti-God, hail Satan, all that. So it was very boundary pushing for the time.
Yeah.
The sexuality and the nudity and there's a lot of stuff that was very taboo.
Yeah.
Stuff that even Hitchcock and Psycho wasn't able to get away with, just 8 years earlier.
Right.
Yeah, I mean they sure her have sex with the beast, the Satan.
She's rapes. I mean, that's like
she's definitely raped in the way it's played.
And there's nudity involved in it. Yeah,
it shows her puffy nipples. But the way that guy plays it off the next morning, I just cut my fingernails, and he made it sound like he raped her anyway, even if they're married,
And it was like, okay, it was fun. It was kind of playful. And it's like, dude, you raped your wife. Like, it's like you stayed while she was asleep. And he compared it to necrophilia. Like, it's kind of like a necrophilia. It's like
necrophiliac in me. It's like, oh,
holy shit, man. Like,
he was kind of the villain throughout the whole movie.
Oh, he is. He's a complete dirtbag. Like everything about Guy. I mean, it's his whole character is revolving around ambition and the ugliness of ambition and fame and like willing to basically sell your wife's soul to get roles in a film. I mean, unfortunately, there are people like that. There are husbands and wives like that who are only focused on making it, or and also just class as well. They want to be part of that upper class, the have and have nots living in the Dakota, but it's not really the Dakota, but living in that swanky place with money and those people, and what do I have to do to conform to get that? A lot of conformity in the movie. Like Rosemary's constantly being conformed to live life the way these people are telling her to live it.
Yeah, 100%. It's crazy to think about that with especially like towards the end when after everything's done, he kept talking about moving to Beverly Hills and all this different stuff, and that's yeah. I think you're right. Good evening. Guy is 100% the villain, and he is a scumbag. Starting with his name. Who names their kid Guy?
It's kind of almost like it's so like, well, he's playing the man character. He's
Yeah,
just
I
a
guess. I
guy.
didn't think about that. Yeah.
Yeah. He's in front of the men, and he's just always controlling her. Also, he doesn't do anything to contribute to their like she's fixing the house and changing it and cleaning it and painting and putting stuff up, and he's always like sitting there looking at the TV and then
That's true.
he's constantly just watching the TV or out working, like trying to get his jobs or get advertisements or film work. But yet, even though she's the one taking care of the house, he's so powerful, like controlling the house and everything she does, and like he basically treats her like a child from all through the movie, even from the beginning where she looks like a child. She's very childlike with her pigtails and her yellow dress and everybody talks down to her like a kid or dismisses her like a kid.
Yeah.
That's what I noticed about this time is just how she is treated by every single character in that movie. It's upsetting. The whole movie is upsetting the way she's treated.
And she has very few allies in the movie. Like everyone is part of this conspiracy. It seems like when she goes to see that one doctor, who is that? The dad from Beethoven?
Yeah,
it's Charles Grodin. Yeah, who just passed away a couple months ago.
I was like, why does that guy look familiar? But then I noticed the name in the credits. But like I felt bad for her, especially at that point, because like she literally had no one that she could really trust. Like, because
especially after Hutch died.
Yeah.
It was like she finally grows. Like the whole movie, she knows shit is bad and things are going bad and there's something wrong and these people are conspiring against her. There's what did she say? There's a conspiracy against me or whatever. And so she finally acts on it. The whole movie, people are watching it going, just fucking do something, Rosemary. You're a victim here. Get out. And she finally reaches out, and we, the audience, are like, oh, Charles Grodin, he's a nice guy. He's a normal guy. He's going to help her. It's like, no, he just puts her right back into harm's way in the hands of the beast, And
yeah, because she's a woman who is out of her mind. I mean, I know that was a thing back then. Women, their smaller brains or whatever they had talked about back then. She was just having a pregnancy problem. There's all kinds of reasons why he did that, and it's like every time that scene happens, I'm like, oh, Dr. Hill to the rescue. But no, he just turns her back over to the other doctor.
Traditionally in horror, go ahead, Seth. I don't want.
I was just gonna say, I got a question about that for you guys because I'm basically gonna count last night as my first time watching it because I didn't remember jack shit from it. But was Dr. Hill a part of the whole cult thing, or was it just because he thought she was insane?
I think he just thought that she was a crazy woman. That's how I
think he thinks. Yeah, I think he thinks she's unstable and needs to be back in the care. Like she's an escaped mental patient or something at this point. Like because she is saying some crazy shit, And
I mean,
I think that's
fucking witches.
Yeah, and I think that's what was really some cool thing about the film is that traditionally the audience thinks, oh, this is going to be her savior. This is the woodsman coming to save her from the big bad wolf. This is a guy that's going to save the day, but it doesn't. Like you said, the evil wins in this movie. Like she goes right back to being trapped and in control of these people, and being what they have designed her to be.
Well, so there's a couple things I want to mention about Rosemary and waiting for her to do things. She tries to do things every now and again, like when she has the stomach pains after being pregnant. She tries to not drink the drink, or she meets with Hutch after her husband and the Cassavetes don't want her to, and she throws that party that they don't. I mean, but they're constantly hovering over her and stopping every attempt that she has to do anything, because every time something would happen, or when Hutch came over, Guy came over and came back from work on his makeup, and Hutch was gone within minutes. It's every time she made a move, they were on top of her. Like even I think she went out to go meet Hutch, and Minnie ended up bumping into her in the street at Christmas shopping. And it's like she did try to do some stuff, but she couldn't, because there were watchdogs over her, because she was perfect for the baby.
She tries to rebel, and she tries to gain control of her life. Like just cutting her hair was a symbol of rebellion. That was something of rebellion and change, and they beat her up for it. They said it was ugly. It was, it wasn't a good haircut. And there are certain things where she does, like reading the books. They take away the books, and the doctor tell him, don't read books, and he actually takes it away from her, puts on a high shelf like a child, like you would punish a child. Like, I'm going to put it up here where you can't get it. Like it's very demeaning and talking down, and that also goes into how women were always, like, they tried to keep women uneducated and unlearned so that the men could run the house and make those decisions. Well, hey, you stop reading. You don't read books, and there's so many things about, someone today was talking about wokeness in movies. I'm like, this movie was a feminist movie in many, many ways. It's very much talking about how women are treated and how women's bodies are controlled by men. Like, this is a situation with a pregnant woman, and she's being controlled by Ralph Bellamy and John Cassavetes, and every decision they're dictating it, or any concern she has, they're keeping her in the dark. The doctor's not telling her things. When she's really concerned about it, she knows what's wrong. And you trust these people, and that's another thing, like the betrayal. Because I mean, anyone who's gone through pregnancies, we had complications with Lily, and it's scary. I remember we thought we may have lost her at one point, and it was frightening. And I had hard times watching anything that had to do with babies or birth or anything like that. And so she's going through that too, if something's wrong, when she's having that pain for weeks,
months.
Months. Yeah. It's like, and they're saying, no, you're fine, it'll go away.
Any day now.
That's a horrible, horrible thing to think about, that she could be dying, and the people she trusts to take care of her or inform her are completely lying to her and keeping truth from her. And that's the horror part of this movie to me, is that it's not about any witchcraft or devils or anything. It's a character who is completely robbed of her identity and her control over her life and her body and her child and her birth and pregnancy. And there's even, I don't think Roman Polanski, I think he made this movie to be that there weren't really witches or Satanists, that it was all, because we don't see any of that shit outside of her hallucinations and her dreams. So it really could just be a manifestation of her paranoia, of her fear of what's happening to her, or just the stress of that lack of control, and everyone's conspiring against me, everyone's plotting against me. It could all be in her head.
Yeah. And I mean, I know my wife, well, actually I can't use her as an example, so never mind. But I know that I'll just use her anyway. She did have some irrational thoughts when she was pregnant. I mean, your body chemistry changes when you're pregnant. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm an expert, but I know she went through some changes, and obviously everybody knows mood swings and all this other bullshit. Not bullshit. God damn it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Women go through a lot of stuff when they're pregnant, and I think a lot of it. I lost my train of thought. because I was trying not to fucking upset people.
Well, people always want to give you advice about things.
Well,
right?
Dr. Saperstein
Yeah.
said, don't listen to your friends.
Yeah, don't listen to your friend. Everyone wants to give you advice, and sometimes everyone always pulls from their own bullshit.
Yeah.
But like every case is different. Every person's different. Or a pregnancy is different. So I mean, there's so much that could be said about this film and how it is a scary situation to go through. Even if you're not even talking about pregnancy, just talk about you're sick, right? So you get a disease, you get sick. People are like, oh, well, my friend had that, so you should do this or take that, or just like, but that may not be right for you, and that might be the wrong thing, or it may not be what you think it is, and so, but then you go to the doctor, and the doctor's feeding you bullshit because there's a plot against you. I mean, this is the terror that's really in Rosemary's Baby that we don't see in a lot of movies and horror movies. It's almost to an exhausting level of how upsetting the movie is, and why, because we're with her. We're from her point of view. We see the movie from her point of view, and we feel ourselves trapped or controlled or frustrated because we, the audience, know that there's something foul going on here, and she is. Even when she's aware of things, she's stopped. She's roadblocked. She's gaslighted. She's like, we can never get to safety because it's constantly being manipulated by these people.
Here's a nice comment, by the way. Can I say how much I like to watch these discussions? In a way, it's like getting to take a film class, which is super cool. If you think about it, kudos, guys. I actually told her she needed to watch Rosemary's Baby. I think she liked it. She mostly talked about how great Mia Farrow is in the role, which she is. But Seth, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, if I remember correctly, too, like this whole movie, she's pretty much in almost every scene.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and like we don't see the characters. The other supporting characters, what they're doing outside of when she's not around, and I think that really helps add to the paranoia and the conspiracy and all that too. I think that's really it's a well directed movie.
Oh yeah, that's definitely like you're talking. I was going to bring that up, the point of view, because like now that I knew what Guy was up to and what's going on, like when I'm watching the first scene where the older couple come over and they go into the living room and you see Guy sitting there with Roman, and you could see that Guy has been intensely listening to Roman. We don't know what they talked about, but if you're paying attention, you see how engaged Guy is with what Roman's been talking about. And basically we know in hindsight, he was off making this deal with him.
Yeah.
But like we're not privy to it because, like you said, we're watching it from her point of view. We only see her point of view. And there was that frame I sent you. Did you get it right?
Yeah, I got it.
In the group?
Yeah.
All right. This is an example of that. This shot here is a Ruth Gordon talking on the phone and Rosemary's point of view of seeing this.
Talking to Abe Saperstein.
And we don't see the conversation and we don't know what's going on. And that's part of the paranoia. But one fun story about this, when the cinematographer was setting up this shot, he had Ruth Gordon in frame, like we could fully see her. And Roman told him to move the camera to this shot where we don't see her. And they said, but we can't see her. He goes, trust me. And so he didn't understand it. And then they got into dailies and they're watching it. And Roman says, watch this. And when this shot came up, the whole crowd, all the people in the room leaned to the right to try to see around the door. And he did that. He knew they would do that. They're trying to see it. So they actually physically tried to move like they could see around that door.
Yeah.
And he did it just to manipulate the audience because that's what filmmakers do. We manipulate you. So it's just a great little moment of filmmaking.
Yeah,
but the whole thing about the movie going into those shots and stuff is he films this movie in a very realistic way to make you believe you're in this world. And the way he does that is there's not a lot of cuts. There's a lot of one long takes and single takes. And that's one example. And that's because once you start cutting stuff, you're taken out of reality, because life, we don't see things in cuts. We're not, it's the mise en scene. We're given a whole story by what Roman puts in frame. The story's there in one image. That's the better way to make film, really, is to not think about cuts. If you can get away without cutting, do it, because as soon as you start cutting it up, it's a music video. It's not fucking reality. It's not voyeuristic or like you're seeing reality. You're seeing something that's a movie. And when we're getting close-ups or inserts and all that, like a lot of filmmakers, I think it's David Fincher will only like use one insert or movie, like that's his rule or something, because like you're directing somebody's eye to something, and it's important. It has to be important. But like with this movie, there are just so many long, uninterrupted takes and movements, and it's a point of view situation, like we're talking about, of her point of view. And when we do see Rosemary, it's usually in a close-up because we're connected to her. It's who we're seeing into her up close.
Yeah. One thing, we go back to the Roman and Guy situation. There's also a very different feeling from Guy and Rosemary after that first meeting, with the, because the dinner was at the Castevet's house or apartment, and Rosemary was already suspecting something was wrong. Guy was very fascinated with the stories. Of course, at that point, I believe he already told Roman, said, "Hey, we want your baby. Got to have a baby, and we'll make your career go, whatever." I mean, we don't know what he said, of course, but that's something along those lines, I'm sure. And Rosemary was like, "Why'd they take all their paintings down?" She was suspect of them from the beginning. And Guy was, I think he was trying to convince her by going on about how great Roman is, and Roman and all the places he's visited and all this different stuff. And, from the beginning, I think she was already suspect of the name. And plus, like, they were much older than those two. Those two were in their 20s, and I don't know how. I mean, Guy looked like he was almost 50, really, but yeah, I don't know how old he was. But
I think Cassavetes was probably her 30s, maybe 40 at the most.
He looked old. Rosemary looked like she was like 25 years old.
I know they wanted Robert Redford for that role originally, and I think Redford was up for it, but he was being sued by like Paramount for like contract issues, so he couldn't do it. But they wanted him.
Good, they got the right slime ball for the role, because he, like, every scene that you can tell he's feeling guilty, like especially at the end when he's got his back turned when Rosemary sees the baby for the first time, and he doesn't want to see her reaction, and he's such a slime ball.
He's even got that great moment I didn't know, where like when she wants him to feel the baby moving, and he's like almost like disgusted about it, like because he knows what's in there. Cassavetes. He's an actor, but he's kind of almost more known for his filmmaking. John, I mean, I only knew him from The Dirty Dozen and a few other things, but in this, he became he's kind of like the godfather of independent filmmaking. He became a film director. Him and his wife, Gina Rollins, did a lot of movies together. And he was this kind of guy who was changing acting at that time. Like, he was very big on improvisation, and not him and Roman really butted heads on this film because Roman was very stickler about script. He stuck to the script. He stuck to the dialogue. He was very like a perfectionist and a pinpoint filmmaker, whereas John was all about improv. And I brought John up a while back because I'm talking about Scorsese's attitude towards superhero movies and all this stuff, right? And how Coppola and Scorsese talk about films meaning something or having like just different type of filmmaking. And right, so I said, well, Scorsese started out with an exploitation movie, Boxcar Bertha, for Roger Corman. But it was after he made Boxcar Bertha, he had a conversation with Cassavetes, and Cassavetes says, "You don't need to make crap like that anymore. You need to make something that's personal and means something to you." So that's when he wrote Mean Streets. So Cassavetes was that kind of guy. He was he was the kind of filmmaker who wanted to make films that felt real and honest and spontaneous and almost, so that's why he's kind of like the godfather of independent film and cinema of that type of era. So I could see him and Roman really conflict. Anytime you're directing another director, there's going to be conflict because they're going to want to do things their way because they're fucking directors, and there is another director in this movie, which is a kind of interesting story. Like the movie, the rights were bought by William Castle, who of course made House on Haunted Hill and The Tingler, and so he wanted to make it, but they thought, well, he makes all these schlocky movies. So Robert Evans hired Polanski to direct, but we do get that little cameo of William Castle, which is one of the creepiest, most tense parts of the movie. That phone booth scene, which is another
was that him?
That's William Castle waiting on the phone.
I know that.
Yeah. And when he turns around, puts a cigar in his mouth, all that, because William Castle's basically like parodied by John Goodman in Matinee. Like that's how he was kind of like a lower grade Hitchcock. He was like a showman himself. He was a guy that did like the Smellorama and all that type of shit. So yeah, it was cool to see when I first saw the movie. I was like, holy shit, that's William Castle. Wait, but you don't know. You think it's Roman, right? I mean, it's kind of how I think you're supposed to take it.
Or one of their old people.
Yeah, and it was so brilliant because that's really a scary scene when we the audience, it's a visual scene because we're not cutting to it, but we are just like, oh, she's so like she's so controlled by all these people that we think that they're everywhere. Mm-hmm. So when we see that guy pop up behind her, we're like certain that it's doom. It's
there's so much paranoia. The paranoia builds throughout the movie, and that scene for sure. You think it's one of their people, or at least Roman. Because as far as we know, Roman's in Denavport or some shit. I can't remember what she called it. Dubrovnik. That's it. Yeah, it's a really good scene too. It's very tense.
Yeah.
I remember using payphones like that. Acting like you're on it, waiting for it to ring. Oh, yeah, I remember doing that when I was a little bit younger. We still had payphones until about 2005 or 6, maybe.
Every once in a while, I'll spot one in the wild, and I'm like, holy shit, there's a payphone.
I haven't seen a payphone in many years.
I saw one last year.
One of the reasons I was hoping Keith would be here so I could ask him if he's ever seen a payphone before. But alas, he has not. So, yeah. So this was when was the last time you watched this, Nate? And I mean,
I think I saw it about a year ago.
I do once a year watching with Seth. And this was your first time watching it since when?
I believe I thought I saw this way back when I was way back when I was in high school, like 20 years ago or whatever. But usually, like if I see something, it's been a while. Still, like when I watch something, I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that, or some things will kind of jog my memory, but I didn't have that with this, so
really,
maybe I never did see it.
Yeah. What would you think overall?
I really liked it. I think it's a good slow burn movie. Like I was watching it last night, and after it ended, I'm like, man, I really love the 60s and 70s for horror, for film in general. Actually, I mean, those were great years. I love. Like what Nate was talking about with like, there's not a lot of cuts. I love that stuff. I love the way that these guys, I mean, today we have people, like Ari Aster or whatever, but like, it seemed like back then filmmaking was a lot more, I don't know, it was a lot more free for the artists. You know what I mean? Like someone like Polanski or John Carpenter, they were able to do those long shots and not have a lot of cuts and fuck it, that's the way it is. But today you have movies that are so chop Quantum of Solace.
Did you get my message, Nate?
Yeah, I got your message.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Yeah, I was just talking. It's funny. I was just talking about the freedom of the filmmaking. You brought up Ari because was it on our group on Horror Syndicate where someone, or I think Jared had posted, I think about A24 and what do you think? Are they pretentious and all that? Yeah. And I brought up that fact that the thing that's great about A24 is that these filmmakers have freedom. that they normally don't. They are getting to be artists again because this distributor supports artists and trusts the filmmaker. And that's what's the difference of today and yesterday was Scorsese and Coppola and all those guys were given, they were respected for what they do. And they were able to make the movies they wanted to make. And it was trusted that way. And it wasn't about being commercial. A24 doesn't seem to be really that interested in commercialism. I mean, of course, they want to make money and they want to sell, but they also realize that they have an audience. They have an audience for their brand, and they don't have to sell to everybody. And they can make movies inexpensively. Just like that's how Blumhouse works. People want to criticize Blumhouse, but Blumhouse is making movies for a fraction of what normal studios do and making money from it. And it gives them freedom to do a lot of things that if they were spending $40 million or $100 million making a movie, they wouldn't. But because they're making it for $3 million, then they can make. And so people want to, fans want to shit on A24 or Blumhouse or anything. But these are films that are the work of artists, and it's not pretentiousness. It's they just have a different perspective. They see and that's what we're supposed to do in art. We're not supposed to see everybody wants everything to look like what they see, but that's not what art is about. It's about seeing. I mean, it is. You interpret it your way. You look at art and you'd interpret it in your own way, but the filmmaker isn't supposed to cater to you or paint from your perspective. They're supposed to paint from their perspective. You're supposed to fucking learn from it or find something there in it. And A24 is one of those studios or distributors who's allowing these artists and these filmmakers to make The Lighthouse or The Witch or Hereditary or Get Out. And instead of rejecting that, we should be drawn to it. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have the David Lynch's and the Roman Polanski's and things like that, where we're seeing real art and expression from someone's creative, original vision.
Yeah, like like I know Hollywood has always been a business, but there used to be, like we were talking about, a little bit more freedom for the artist. And I feel like what like A24 and like even what Blumhouse are doing to a certain extent is they're sort of like almost like going back to like the old way of producing movies rather than, because I think maybe you or someone else mentioned it before. I think it was our chat or whatever, but like, with the 80s, films really became a product more than anything. And it's all about selling the product. And that's what the big studios are into now. And that's why we actually need companies like A24 and Blumhouse to kind of have a better balance. So, I'm not quite on, Martin Scorsese's side about superhero movies, but we need a better balance because we can't just have all product and no artistic vision.
Yeah, because but we're also living in a time where art isn't as respected as it once was,
right?
Because it's so disposable. I mean, everywhere we look, there's software and filters and shit that can mimic what an artist or a photographer can do. Like you don't need to know film developing or filters or like lens filters and things that to do things in camera on the day, on the spot to get a result. You can do it all in post with cheap software or like a photographer. Like a photographer will sit for hours waiting for the right shot, the right composition, the right moment to take a photograph. Whereas now people go, snap, 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 snap. They end up with 2,000 photos and they go through all of them to find the one that's good or works. It was the best, where that's not real art. Art takes patience, it takes fucking work, and it takes an eye and takes real talent and understanding of the equipment you're using or the tools you're using and everything from composition to, I mean, there's so much. And that's the thing about like someone like Roman Polanski, the guy knew what he was fucking doing. And he was a guy who really understood film and filmmaking and storytelling, visual storytelling. And you can't watch Rosemary's Baby without, if you are a student of film, and not be like, whoa, this is phenomenal. Like, there's just so much good filmmaking in that movie, from every decision that was made, from costume, like the use of yellow, the use of art direction, and the apartment itself, and the locations, and the way, the contrasting of the people, and just the choices of actors. And I mean, I guess we could talk more about some of the actors. Like, I just absolutely love Ruth Gordon. I just like her so much, as like in Harold and Maude, and other films I saw her in. But there's just something magnetic about her, and this was kind of like a resurrection for her. I think she had kind of cooled down on her career for a while when this movie came out.
I mean, she was getting pretty old by that time.
Yeah. Like, yeah, they're both, her and the guy who plays Roman. Was it Sidney something? What's his name?
I have it pulled up.
They were both born in the 1800s.
Yeah, Roman's character was born in 1886.
Yeah, he fought.
I gotta go off here for a second. My kid's school calling me.
He fought in World War One. So, but, and then Ralph Bellamy. Like, it's funny because I grew up in the time where, like, Ralph Bellamy was the guy from Trading Places. You know? So whenever I see Ralph Bellamy in a movie, even though he's a scumbag at Trading Places, he's a super scumbag in this movie. Yeah. Yeah, and just Mia Farrow, of course, completely robbed. She didn't even get an Oscar nomination for this. It's just dumbfounding to me. I mean, I'd have to look at who her competition was, because that's always when people say, "Oh, they deserved a nomination, or they should have got the Oscar." It always comes down to, like, well, what were they up against? You know, because there's sometimes, like, amazing. Some years there are just unlimited amazing performances and roles.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's like, well, yeah, so and so was good, but were they as good as, you know, Al Pacino in this, or were they as good as, you know, Meryl Streep in that? No, they weren't. That's why they didn't win their Oscar. See what Luke says. People bitch about everything is a remake, and studios like Blumhouse and A24 are cranking out great films, and they either don't know about them or they shit on them. They're their own worst enemy. Yeah, I mean, when people make original movies, like another A24 movie is a prime example of that is Tusk. Whether you liked Tusk or not, Kevin Smith made the movie he wanted to make. Uncompromised. You've never seen a movie like Tusk before. You cannot name a movie like that movie. Whether you like it or not, it was original, and it was in the hands of the guy making it. And people say that's what they want, but they don't. They just want the same movie they already like. That's what they want.
They bitch about remakes and everything like that, but then they ignore all the original stuff that comes out in a year. There's a lot of original films that come out per year, and it either doesn't look good to them, it looks pretentious to them.
Well, shit, how many did we see just last year alone?
Yeah, and they'd rather go to the theater to go see the big IP properties, and so they're supporting against their, you know, what they want by doing that, but they ignore films like these. I mean, you know, it's unfortunate. But
yeah, like how many people went and saw Last Night in Soho or Nightmare Alley, or, you know, I mean, even Nightmare Alley's a remake, but how many people went and saw those? They didn't. They went and saw Scream 5. They went and saw Halloween.
Movie we're just talking about that's on something.
Yeah, Nightmare Alley. I'm so excited. It hit HBO Max and Hulu today. Guillermo del Toro's new movie.
Oh, that's what. Okay, I don't think I saw the trailer for that one.
Yeah, it's Bradley Cooper. Good. Yeah. Like it gets really frustrated because I also feel like, not to put myself in those leagues because I'm definitely not, but I am a modern day filmmaker, and I'm just treated like we're just treated as like we aren't creative and we aren't original and we have no talent and we'll never be as good as John Carpenter or Wes Craven or George Romero and it's horseshit, like even like everything's romanticized about these people. But at the time we've talked about it. John Carpenter's movies flopped. No one took them seriously. No one took Hitchcock fucking seriously when he was working in the 50s and the 60s and the 40s.
Look what everybody says about John Carpenter's best movie was Halloween. It's not.
It's not his best.
No, it's not. It's its best because it's the most popular and no offense, Seth. I know I love Halloween too.
A lot of times, best is not what fans celebrate.
No,
like sometimes your simplest, less engaged piece of work is the one that's most celebrated. Like you'll be like I always call it the cherry pie thing. Like Warrant wrote Cherry Pie like as of like in seconds. Like they didn't care about that song, and it's what they're known for. So they hate that song.
They've got better Cowboys. It's a great song.
So, but the thing, like, it's not to even like just compared to work, but like sometimes you're going to be remembered for the thing that took no effort or wasn't your best work. Like I always say, like I could spend a week drawing one piece and put everything I've learned over 45 years into that piece. And I personally felt, oh, this is the best thing I've ever done. But if it's not recognizable or appealing to a lot of people, they'll look at it and go, that's all right. It looks good. But if I draw Jason Voorhees in 10 minutes, they're going to be, that's the fucking coolest shit I ever saw you do. Because it's Jason. It's not, it's familiar. It's what they like already. I could have half-assed it and they're going to love it more. But that's the way, and that's how Hollywood's working. What's going to sell? Spider-Man or Nightmare Alley? Spider-Man's going to make fun more money. That's just how it is. And you can't sit there and say, I didn't go see it or I don't have interest. You didn't go see Nightmare Alley. You didn't go see this movie. So stop bitching about originality or what Hollywood's only allowing you to see, because these movies do get theatrical runs.
It makes me wonder what horror fans think when they see trailers in the theater. Like I saw the movie, what was it called? Brightburn in the theater when it came out, and it was a fun movie or whatever, but there was a trailer for Midsummer, and when I saw it, I knew it was a horror movie. I don't give a shit about studio. No offense to A24 or whatever. They make fine movies. That didn't reel me in. I was like, oh shit, this looks like it's going to be a intense movie. I want to see this. This looks different. And yet, people were like, oh, I want to see the remake of Chucky or whatever. It's like, and then they bitch about it. I get what you're saying, but I wonder what goes through people's heads whenever they see these trailers for these movies like Hereditary. Hereditary's trailer was intense. Midsummer's trailer was intense. I don't get people.
Well, like we did our show about 2021 horror, and I watched 50 films, and I didn't watch every horror movie that was made that year, but I watched 50 films. I watched 50 fucking films, and maybe two were remakes. Maybe 10 were sequels, but the rest were all original films and some damn good films that a lot of people aren't ever going to watch or give a chance because they've never heard of it. Oh, I don't know who's in it. I don't know what it's about, and I'm just not interested.
What this guy said about Shudder, I really like. Original movies that otherwise wouldn't have seen. Yeah, that's
almost everything. Almost everything I hadn't seen that I watched during that show was on Shudder. Because my wife just said, should we get rid of Shudder? I'm like, hell no. They're like, that's where everything that no one knows about is being shown.
That's where horror lives.
Yeah. Like they're actually pretty fucking awesome. They are really delivering the stuff that, we're not force fed by, the media or the press or what's advertised. But so when people say all they do is make remakes, I'm like, then you're just paying attention to what is talked about in your horror groups, or posted on a website. Like there's so much beyond that.
Or the commercials on TV. I mean, how many people saw Slacks?
So good.
Right. I mean, how many people saw Jacob's Wife or Willy's Wonderland or Coming Home in the Dark? That was a good one. Saint Maud. Some of these movies that came out last year are really good. I mean, but people are going to bitch and complain about Candyman, even though it was really good. People bitch and complain about Halloween Kills, and still name it their number one of the year, by the way. But yeah, I don't know how we got to this subject, but
we were talking about the fact that
The Boy Behind the Door was the one I really liked.
The 60s and the 70s, filmmakers, auteurs were in vogue. Like they were allowing people like Polanski to make a Polanski film. Not here's a product, now make it that sells to
See,
all these people.
Garbage. Okay.
Midsummer is tremendous.
It's just The Wicker Man. Come on.
It's just The Wicker Man. I don't know. I can't force people to open up their minds anymore.
No, we try.
Horizons.
We try.
But, like I just look at it as people's loss. If they want to hate on everything or reject everything or say, hey, I'm not interested or it's not my interest. Hey, I'm just trying to spread some things, because like when I see something, I just don't know the focus on negativity. Like if I see something I don't like, I don't fucking talk about it. I don't bring it up, because why I don't want but if I tell you about something, it's because I believe in it. I felt it was decent, or it was worth watching, or someone did a good job, and deserves to be supported.
I just recently saw some older movies that I'd never seen before. I didn't tell you guys about them, because if I like The Devil's Reign. Have you ever seen that one?
Oh yeah,
1975. It was a turd, but I didn't go, hey guys, The Devil's Reign sucked ass. It's one of the biggest pieces of shit. It wasn't, but like I saw Witchfinder General recently, which I liked. I try to watch other movies that's one of the things about horror. There's so many horror movies. Like I've been trying to keep track of how many I've seen. I'm up to 803. I think I'm almost certain there's more, but it's like there's some things that you won't even give a chance to. And Rosemary's Baby is definitely one that everybody should watch if they haven't seen it, in my opinion. The Devil's Reign. It was okay. I'm not saying it was a big piece of shit. I'm just saying I didn't care for it. I didn't go bash it.
It would have been good if John Travolta's voice had been used instead of a voiceover.
Yeah, Psycho Gorman. I didn't care for that one, but I didn't bash it. I just said I didn't care for it.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun, but then that girl annoyed the crap out of me. So it was one of those situations. If you don't like,
I don't think there's
hating on it. Yeah.
I don't think there's necessarily something wrong with saying that you don't like a movie. I watch a lot of werewolf movies. 25% of them that I see are shit, and I don't talk about them. Yeah. But then there's stuff where
hike that number up. It's probably more than 25%.
Yeah. But then there's other stuff that I see and I have issues with, and just passionately I want to talk about film, and I want to talk about stuff that I like, and sometimes talking about the negatives is fine. Mm-hmm. I don't for me it's not about bashing a movie. Like if there's a movie I really hate, I'm not going to talk about it ever. But then there's times where discussion is fine, where you can open up about something you like. I've been pretty bitter lately, so I've been coming off pretty strong in my opinions. But just like, for example, like TCM, the new trailer, I was pretty bitter and strong about it. But it's from a place of love, not just for the sake of bashing it. That's I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, there's the I think the thing that's understandable is disappointment, because we go into a lot of films, especially brands or franchises, with expectations, and a lot of times it's very rare that I go see a movie that I'm really excited about the first time and walk away feeling wow, because my expectations are overwhelming to the point where, did I like it? Was it good? Did I really? It always takes another.
My reaction to Scream 5, right there.
To what? Scream 5.
Summed up my reaction to the new Scream 5.
Well, that's how it always is. It's like it's really hard to judge your first viewing, because you've got this movie already in your head. anyway. Not only because of your expectations and your passion for it, but also all the fucking material that we see beforehand. Now everything's so exposed. Like, I feel like I've seen everything about the Batman already. Like, enough of the TV spots, enough of the trailers, enough of all this stuff. Leave some mystery. And so now I have this thing in my head of what this movie is. It may not be that movie at all. And if it isn't that movie, there's going to be a little bit of like, oh, I thought it was going to be this movie. It sucks.
And now you're describing me watching The Dark Knight.
But that's how it really is. Like, it's just, there's so many complications of how we take in movies. But to go to what Seth was saying, like, the behavior that I have an issue with and I don't understand is, like, if I'm scrolling through Facebook and I see someone say, hey, I just saw Halloween Kills, I just fucking loved it. What in a person goes, I need to tell him he's stupid and this fucking sucks and I hated it. Like, just go. Just keep scrolling. He loves something. Fucking leave it alone. But he might say that 20 years from now and you're still like, I'm holding on to this shit. I fucking think it's a piece of shit. And I was like, just let it go, baby, man. Just let it go.
Let it go, baby.
Chill. It's okay.
Into, Woodward or whatever from
turn into Woodardson, man. You gotta just keep living, man.
Livin.
All right, you ain't changing the movie; it exists, baby.
Yeah,
it ain't going nowhere. Let that guy have his fun. You know, that's really it. It's like, let people enjoy shit, as they say. That meme, let people have fun, enjoy shit. Yeah. That's it.
Well, I never told you guys how I felt about Spider-Man.
You're just a fucking asshole in the room when you do that stuff.
I guess that's kind of like the difference between us and other people. I'm not saying that we're better than other people, but like,
no.
I know for me personally, like, speaking about myself, like, if I say that I don't like something, I have no expectation that everyone's going to agree with me or that they should agree with me. You know, there's a lot of movies that I love that people hate, you know, and vice versa. You know, it happens. Whoa, we're getting spammed, huh?
Yeah, check it out. Boom.
We can watch that movie for free.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. It was like a bunch of that stuff, and then it said Saudi Arabia and two more of them. I was like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
I blocked them. So sorry, Saudi Arabia. That totally threw Seth off track. What he was saying.
What were you saying, Seth?
I can't rewind the tape.
I don't. Okay. Just, you know, from my own personal experience, like, even if I don't like something, even if I speak about how I don't like something, I don't have this expectation where people have to listen to me, where I believe I'm right. You know, like, I am perfectly fine with someone loving something that I don't. What's that?
Well, like, one of the comments we had was, "It's not my thing." That's a great thing. Like, look.
Yeah.
The Twilight movies made a fuck ton of money. It wasn't made for me. And that's okay. Does that mean that everybody who loved it and bought all of them and went to see them are wrong or dumb or stupid? No, it doesn't. It just means it's their thing. It's who you are. If that's what your thing is, like, we all grew up watching movies that were shit. But because we liked that certain thing or whatever, like, hey, I liked BMX racing, so I love that movie I love Rad.
Rad is awesome.
It's not like Rad was Rosemary's Baby or anything. It was,
but it was badass.
It was cool. But it's not
the Cube, and you know it.
Blaming the Cube is the best film ever made. You know, because I like skateboarding and I like Tony Hawk and I like Pizza Hut.
But my God, the Twilight movies made $3.3 billion over 4 movies. Holy shit!
They made tons of fucking money, and it's like, it doesn't have to be. You don't have to have an opinion on it. It's not. No one cares. Like, it's not. It's like, let those people love it. Just like there's people like, I don't. It's just like when the Star Wars movie comes out. I've never seen any of the Star Wars movies. I think they're stupid, and I don't care. It's like, great. What do you want, a fucking cookie?
Edgelord alert.
Yeah, what do you want, a fucking prize? I mean, you won the world, I guess. You won your life. You didn't see Star Wars. Great. Like, but it's like, I've never seen one episode of Breaking Bad. It probably sucks. Like, and you don't know. You've never seen one episode, you dumb fuck. Like, just why?
It's just like when people base shit off the trailer. Seth. I
got my
Sorry,
reasons. All right.
But no, I know we have good reasons, and we're going to discuss that goddamn movie. I'm sorry, I know what we're doing this month, but on the 22nd, we're going to discuss the new Texas Chainsaw. We all can see it, so we're going to discuss it.
I'm still looking forward to it. Like the night before the trailer dropped, I was texting a couple of my buddies. They're gonna come over here. We're gonna do the original and the new one back to back.
I should do that too. Yeah. The original is my number 3 of all time.
They used the wrong model of chainsaw, so fuck
I
that
know.
movie.
That's Nate's big hang up is that damn chainsaw model.
The vent cover is the wrong one. It's a dumpster fire.
I think I do judge a little. I think everybody judges because you're like, oh, that looks good. You do judge, but you can't say the movie's trash. You know, if a trailer was so when I watched that trailer for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre yesterday, I was like,
I think about all the trailers.
2018.
I think about all the trailers of movies I saw. I went, ugh, that looks awful. Then I saw the movie and I went, oh my God, that was amazing. That was a great movie. And the vice versa. I've seen movies with amazing trailers and the movie sucked ass.
You know what movie the trailer that made me think I'll never watch this movie and you told me to watch it, Nate, was that Ford versus Ferrari movie. The trailer was like, oh, that looks awful. And I watched it. It's a really great movie.
It's an amazing movie.
It's a really, it is. But that's not horror, but still.
Yeah, but in general, like there are movies. I remember when the John Wick movie came out, and I thought, Keanu Reeves, because there were a lot of movies like that where a guy's walking with a gun, and it's just a name like Jack Reacher or whatever. I'm like, oh, it's Keanu Reeves. And I was never a huge Keanu Reeves action star guy, and I just kind of wrote the movie off. And then it came out, and the critics and fans were just like, "This is the most amazing thing ever." I'm like, "Really?" I had no assumptions that it was going to be anything special. And then I saw it, and I'm like, "Holy fuck!"
Pretty damn good.
It's just pretty damn awesome.
Yeah.
I had no, but the thing is, like, you don't know until you've experienced it. But people go around deciding and judging and giving final testimony on something that they've seen They see a photograph of a movie taken by some person who snuck on set.
Yeah.
And they decide the movie is going to be shit. You know?
We should ask that question. What movie do you hate the most that you've never seen?
How much time you got, buddy?
Yeah. Pull up the bar stool a little bit. Let's talk. I want to be John Wick when I grow up. Yeah, John Wick surprised me, that's for sure. But yeah, and I wonder, like, I've never looked at box office numbers on Rosemary's Baby, but I wonder how well it did because I think it's got a really good IMDb score. I can't say.
I imagine it did well. It had to have done well that year.
I'm gonna look because I was gonna use my phone to look, but my computer's right here. Makes more sense, right?
Well, it's that time where horror films were based on novels, and Ira
he's not here. He's watching Ghostbusters.
Ira, wrote. I mean, the movie hadn't come out, but he wrote Stepford Wives, which has a lot in common with this movie, this book. I didn't know he wrote a lot of the comedy. He wrote No Time for Sergeants with Andy Griffith, which is a great movie, great comedy.
Just so you know, this is why Keith isn't here.
He's making that stuff.
Yeah, he's ready for some ghost busting. So, all right, sorry. I just had to flash that up. So I hope he watches the show and sees that I checked that. What was I doing? Oh, Rosemary's Baby box office. He was dating Mia Farrow too at the time, wasn't he?
No, he was married to Sharon Tate at the time.
Married to Sharon Tate still?
Yeah, which we hadn't talked about the whole controversy of things, and it kind of got brought up because when Keith pointed out that he was watching this movie, of course, anytime you talk about Polanski, you're going to talk about his past, which is pretty fucking ugly in many ways. First of all, Polanski's mother was killed in the Holocaust at Auschwitz. He saw her taken away. He saw his dad taken away. His dad actually ended up surviving. But for a while, Polanski grew up like 6 years old, 7 years old, whatever, on the streets, like as a Jewish kid in Poland, avoiding the Nazis basically. And his parents were taken, and his dad was saved, I guess. I don't know how, but his mom did die in a concentration camp. But apart from that, of course, 1 year after this film, his wife Sharon Tate was murdered by the Manson family.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna let you watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
And then the thing that's haunted him is like, and really, I kind of believe he did it, and fuck him for it. Is his accusations of rape. He raped a 13-year-old girl in like 1977, I think, or something. And he's basically an outlaw from the United States. He fled to France, and he's not come back here. I do believe he's guilty of it, and I'm someone who can separate the art from the artist. Because I feel if we start like just burning movies and books and things because of how shitty the artists involved were, we wouldn't have a filmography or a library or anything, because there's a lot of pieces of shit. Yeah. I don't have to love the guy or to say he's a fantastic human being, because he's not, but his work, Chinatown, Rosemary's Baby, you can't deny what they are. There's just this weird connection, like a separation of like Mia Farrow, of course, was at the time she was married to Frank Sinatra. And Frank wanted her to be in his Die Hard connection. He wanted to be he was doing the detective, and he wanted her to be in the detective with him. And they actually divorced over this movie, Rosemary's Baby. Like, he didn't want her to do it, and he served her divorce papers while she was making Rosemary's Baby. She almost didn't do it because of Frank, and then someone said, "This movie's going to get you an Oscar," and so she chose Rosemary's Baby. And then, of course, she ended up marrying Woody Allen, and we all know that story as well. So it's like she's so connected to this shit. And then it's like the Beatles are in there because it was shot at the Dakota, which is where John Lennon was shot in 1980. But also the Beatles inspired the Manson family. So there's all this weird connection. And this is something I found out today, was the guy that's at the house, or when she goes and finds the baby and all the witches and everything. There's that guy in white that comes in.
Yeah,
that guy was a real cult leader.
He looked like it too.
He became a cult leader. His name is Michelle something, and
it's not Anton LaVey.
No, they say there's word that he's in that movie, but I've
looked for him so many. I don't think he is. No. I don't think he's old enough to have been. I think he was a kid at the time, wasn't he?
No, he started the church before Rosemary's Baby, I think.
Was it? Damn.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess so. He would have been 38. Yeah, I guess he could have been.
But that guy is a cult leader. He became it's like Buddhaville or something was the cult. Yeah. So I don't know if that's why he's in the movie, because I don't know if he had started the cult yet or what it was. But this is an interesting little detail about that guy.
I have a question about Anton LaVey. Do you think because he looked evil, he decided to just go with it?
Well, is he part of the whole, like, because I know a lot of the Church of Satan or Satanists are like off. They're not really Satanists. They don't really praise Satan. It's all about like how the church, like Christianity, forces law and everything on American government. But they're like, oh, okay, so if we're all free of religion and all that, then we're going to be Satanists, and to contradict or to present you as hypocrites, that you won't allow us to do what we want to do, but it's only approved if you want it. So, like, it's really kind of to fuck with Christians, from what I've understood, more so than they actually believe in Satan. I think he just wanted to have sex with a bunch of women.
That could be. Would you follow that guy?
I'd follow him in my Reeboks or Nikes. That's right, Nikes.
I'd rather follow this guy. That's one of the best innings.
He's a sharp dresser.
Why? Okay, so flash forward 50 years to Hereditary. Am I the only one who got vibes of Rosemary's Baby towards the end of that movie? Something about it, like when I watched Hereditary,
naked old people.
Besides that, But no, I mean they were not naked at the end of the movie. But I don't know. So the vibe at the end when he goes up into that treehouse, some vibe about it. I just felt like I was like, oh my god, this feels like Rosemary's Baby. The ending of it,
There's definitely little things like that in there.
Yeah, well, because both movies basically the villains win. I mean,
Yeah.
They're both pretty bleak movies where the good guys don't get, they don't get victory over the conflict. I guess I can't speak.
But I do like the end of the movie when she does kind of take control and that old lady's like rocking him really fast. Mary Louise or whatever the hell her name was.
Well, it's like they only allow her to have control once she's conformed to them.
Well, I like that
she's one of them now, really.
Well, kind of. Like Roman gets really up close in her face, like they're nose to nose almost. He's like, "You don't have to join if you don't want to. Just be the mother to the baby." And I think that she realized there, like, if she wanted to be a part of the baby's life. One of my favorite scenes in horror, by the way, is when the reveal the baby. We never see the baby really, but when she sees the baby, she has one of the best acting moments of all time, in my opinion. When she has the knife and she covers her mouth and is trembling a little bit. What did you do to its eyes? It has his father's eyes. I love that scene so much. It always, from that point on, I get chills. And then, of course, with Roman yelling, "Hail Satan" and all this different stuff. It's the year one. I love that scene.
It's a scary fucking moment, it really is.
Yeah. Well, and that my son was asking me about. I was like, well, there's a lot of buildup. There's a lot of paranoia. There's some witchcraft elements. There's some occult stuff. But the end is the big payoff for me. I love the end, especially when right after she has the baby, and she's in the room and she's hiding the pills, in the little notch of the bed, and she tries to put the spoon, and she did that on purpose. I noticed. I looked very closely this time. She did put the spoon in the breast milk on purpose to see what they would do.
I think the thing about the movie is they tell you from the beginning what really is going to happen and what's going on, because they talk about the witches in the building and all that there. So it's like they've already presented what is the fucking plot, like, or what's going to happen, and so where it's all heading, which is even more. It's kind of like Hitchcock's bomb theory of showing the bomb under the table. Like, we know as the audience that these people are.
But they're having a talk about baseball.
Yeah, we know that they're this is happening and this is what's going on, and no one wants to believe her and how crazy she is, and we're with her on that. And so it is like that ticking time bomb, this building. But we know what the outcome is. I mean, it's not a shocking ending. It's a shocking by, oh shit, they really went there in 1968. But there's no mystery to what our end game is in this movie. It's only because, like Seth has pointed out, evil wins, and that was very unheard of at that time in Hollywood. Good had to win. That was kind of
a happy ending, yeah.
And so when we see a movie where there is not a good ending, or a happy ending, which is movies like someone mentioned Wicker Man, who thought that he wasn't going to be saved at the end of Wicker Man? He's not. It's like we always think that evil's going to die and good will triumph and win the day. And when it doesn't happen, there's a particular audience member who will hate that movie for that reason. Because they feel like, well, that's not how it's supposed to go. But me, I'm always like, fuck yeah, they had the balls to go that way. It's like when The Mist, when he shoots his kid, and everybody was like, fuck yeah, they went there. Like, that's amazing. Like, one of my favorite endings, hopefully I'm not spoiling anything for anybody, but the movie The Pledge with Jack Nicholson, who was thought for a guy as well. He wanted a guy, although Roman said he was too dark for that character. But the movie The Pledge that Sean Penn directed, he's a cop. Nicholson's a cop who's trying to find a child murderer, and he's promised this woman that he will find the killer. And so the whole movie, he's retired. He's a retired policeman or detective, but he's still trying to solve this because he's made this promise to this woman that he will find this person, and he's pledged. And the end of the movie, he does not. He gets close, but he doesn't resolve it. And there's this amazing scene at the end where he's sitting outside this like gas station talking to him, like running. He's crazy. It's made him crazy. And he's like, I know. He's just talking to himself by himself. I mean, it's this sad thing where it's like, we know as audience, he almost had the guy and he'll never get him because the guy's dead, but he doesn't know that, you know, that kind of thing. So it's like, but like this guy's life is a fucking mess and he's insane by the end of the movie. And like that's a downer ending, but I love it because of that. There's no resolution. When there's no resolution, it's like, so some audience is like, oh, fuck that movie. But I'm kind of like, applaud because you had the guts to go that way and not satisfy the audience.
Not quite the same thing, I guess. And I don't want to do any spoilers, but like if you've seen Prisoners, you know, I think that's a pretty bleak ending too, with what happens with Hugh Jackman's character.
Yeah, or I won't give any spoilers away. But my second favorite film, No Country for Old Men, people hate that ending because they don't give you the ending everyone's expecting to happen, like traditional action thriller ending. They give you the ending that's like real life, which is things come unexpectedly. You don't get to script your death. You don't get to script like sometimes we're here and the next minute we're gone, and it's not always, you know, in an epic gun battle or a fight with the bad guy. You know, I would love to watch that action movie.
Javier Bardem.
Yeah.
Okay, I was blanking on what that movie was. I was like, I feel like I've seen that. Okay,
like there are those movies where you'll have, like, say you're watching a Bruce Lee movie, right? And he's building his way up to the big villain, but what if he dies like in Act 2, and he never fights the bad guy, like the big bad guy, and he's like, "What? That's not how this works." And I love when a filmmaker's like, "No, that's what we're gonna do."
Subverting.
It's not going to be Bruce Lee that kills the bad guy. It's going to be his sister.
Yeah, it's not going to be.
Who was just tagging along the whole time or something. You know, like, why not throw a curveball that way? And some people just like can't go with that. And to me, I always like, I love that because I never saw that coming, and I never expected it. I never thought you'd do that because that's not how this is supposed to work. We're so trained in how things are supposed to be. Just like when we go see a movie we haven't seen before, but we're really excited about, and it doesn't go the way we thought it was going to go. It doesn't give us what we thought we wanted or what we wanted, and we don't. Then we say, well, the movie's shit, instead of saying, oh, they challenged me. They made me think of another way, or they went another direction, and doesn't mean it's shit. Maybe I still don't like it and don't feel good about it, but it doesn't mean they're terrible filmmakers or it's a terrible movie.
No, because I liked Knives Out. Sorry.
I thought it was delightful.
I'm looking forward to another one. I hear they're making another one.
Yeah.
Netflix only. So screw you, Netflix. I gotta hang on for at least one more month. Anyway. So if you guys had to rate Rosemary's Baby on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think you'd give it? Don't give me some 1.5 shit or something.
It's a 10 for me. I can't think that movie could be any better than it is. I think really, to me, if a movie has any room for improvement, but it doesn't, it's one of those movies that's a perfect 10.
It's the S4. Yeah, I agree. It's number 4 on my list. It's number 4 on my list of favorites because there's nothing's going to top A Nightmare on Elm Street as my favorite horror movie ever. I don't care what it is. But
that's my favorite. But there are things about that movie that could have been done better and improved upon. Even though it's my favorite Nightmare. It's my favorite horror movie.
You are wrong, sir. It's personal. I agree completely. Luke says, "Hold on." Luke says 9. Hell 10. Christy says 10. I love it, man. Seth, what about you?
I'm gonna give it a 2 because it has nothing to do with Michael Myers. No, I'm going to give it a 10.
Or werewolf.
There's no werewolves in there. Well, we don't know if she may have been raped. No. It could have been a werewolf raping her. He had hair on and claws.
Sure. Fuzzy body and claws. Yeah. I'm glad that I wanted to see what Keith thought because he's the youngest. I always like to ask the younger. Like, we definitely like movies from the early days of filmmaking, from the 30s up through now. Really, And he's the one that's really kind of like the newbie seeing some of these movies for the first time, even though Seth said this was kind of like the first time all over. Did it feel like the first time, the very first time when you watched it? Never mind. Anyway,
Yeah, I also did that right after.
Anyway, I suggest this to anyone. I put up a post about it on the Horror Syndicate's Facebook page, and we got 3 likes on the post. What do you think of Rosemary's Baby? 3 likes. It was like, does nobody like this movie? That's what I thought. I'm like, am I the only one? I mean, it's number 4 for me. Jaws is number 2.
I don't, man. That's the unfortunate thing is I don't know. It should be a no-brainer. What this movie should be praised because it's not just, it's one of those situations where it's not just a great horror movie, it's a great film. It's one of the best films of the 1960s, period.
Yeah, it's more than horror. Like Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
In a way. And then not comparing that they're like similar movies, but Silence of the Lambs in some way, some people don't recognize it as a horror movie. I think Rosemary's Baby could go that way.
And if your disdain for it has to do with Polanski's crimes, then fine. I totally get that, support that. Like, because the guy's a scumbag.
But don't let me continue watching Jeepers Creepers. So.
But that's unfortunate too, because it was a book first, so it's really someone else's art, and there's so many different people working on a movie set, like
exactly
hundreds of people, like
mm-hmm.
So for one person to just kind of, for people to shit on someone's work because of one person, when hundreds of people have worked on it, put their blood and sweat into it, and it's unfortunate.
Exactly. If one person turns out to be a murderer or whatever, like you can't just say, well, that movie needs to go in the fire or it doesn't have any place in my house, because like you said, that movies especially are not made by one person, even though
it can't be.
That film is a lot of Polanski. His art is not his actions in life and the bad judgments he made and the stupid things he did on drugs or whatever the hell it was causing him to do what he did, the fame, the power, the whatever, why he did what he did. I thought that was one thing watching this movie was interesting, was this movie really makes a statement about rape and how wrong it is and how ugly it is. And this guy turned out to be a rapist. It's a feminist movie. It's about controlling women's bodies and all that, and how that's a bad thing. And this guy abused women and young women, and so fucked up.
Maybe he's got Napoleon syndrome, because apparently he's only like 5'2".
Yeah, he's a tiny guy.
Yeah, I just looked it up because I was curious. I saw a picture of him next to his wife who was in the 9th gate, and I'm like, oh my god, he's short. But yeah, I don't have. That's why I'll watch Jeepers Creepers. The guy's a creep, but the movies aren't. Well, they're okay. But
I like the first movies. I'll watch them. Doesn't mean I support that piece of shit. Yeah.
No, not at all. Victor something or other. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. We love Rosemary's Baby here at the Horror Syndicate, and circling back to something Nate said a while back about trying to get people to broaden their horizons for the most part and watching horror. That was the sole purpose of creating the Horror Syndicate, was to get people out of their comfort zone and try to get them watching other films. And that's part of the reason we do the show the way we've been doing it for the last, the 3rd season now. We've discussed movies, like you said, Nate, we dissect them for the most part, because and we try to do movies that people don't see very often. I mean, we've done shows with Freddie and Michael Myers, tons of them, but like, stick around, because we're going to do some stuff with the 60s this month. Nate's got a couple that I've got to find. I'm going to go to Vintage Stock to see if I can find that movie, the Target. Is it Target or Target?
Target.
Yeah, I want to check that one out for sure. You said something about wanting to talk about Carnival Souls. Wasn't my cup of tea, but that's, I'm not going to sit there and bash it.
Carnival Souls. Like I wasn't surprised the way you felt about it, because it is not a movie that screams, oh, this is good. Like, it's just a weird, there's something about it that's, you could watch and go, God, this is awful. It's one of those type of movies.
She seems like she's in a hypnotic state throughout the entire movie. And there's a couple times where she breaks. But the thing is, like, almost immediately I knew what was going on, which was sad for me. I was like, I think I know what's going on. I watched movies like Son of a Bitch. Yes.
But at the same time, you've seen so many movies that have gone that route.
Exactly.
This was 1962, so it's one of those things where because I see that a lot with movies when people watch movies that were made before 1970, 1980, where they're like, "Oh, it's very predictable." It's like, well, at that time it wasn't. Now you've seen so many movies that have followed suit and done that.
I try to put myself in that mindset of seeing it when it's hard to do sometimes, but like I want to know what the audience felt like. Like that's something that I wish time machines were around for, so I could see audience reactions. I know we can see plenty of the Exorcist audience reactions online, but like I'd love to know what people actually thought of this in 1962 or Rosemary's Baby in '68 when it came out.
Well, some people talk about how Texas Chainsaw Massacre wasn't as alarming or as shocking or as brutal or whatever as its reputation was. Like, well, you didn't see it in 1974 or 1984 or 1994. Now you've seen so many movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, movies that were even more violent, more gory, more abrasive. But in 1974 and even 10, 15 years after that, there just wasn't anything like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The impact and the weight that movie had.
And not to mention, one of the things about I think that had it going for it, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, was it could happen anywhere in America, and it's the look of the film so low budget, it looks so raw. I think it almost comes off as real life snuff film or something like that. I love that. That's my number 3, by the way. You've heard my top 4 now. I'd spoil the whole thing. I love that movie. Help to show that. Yeah, you should. Oh man, you missed the whole show. We delve into all that stuff a little bit in the show. Yeah, Rosemary's Baby is a great movie. I think it's one of the top 3 of the 1960s, along with Night of the Living Dead, Psycho. I'm very partial to the Hammer films, but they're not quite as good. I don't know. What's next? What are we talking about next week? Do we know yet?
I don't know. I mean,
Halloween.
Gonna do another 60s film?
John Carpenter's Christmas. Yeah, I mean,
if you can get your hands on targets, we could do.
I'll try to this way. Well,
we just lost Peter Bogdanovic. That was one of the reasons I wanted to do it, because he's one of the great filmmakers, and that was his first film, and it was a Roger Corman, Boris Karloff movie.
I'm surprised it's not on Shudder. Shudder has been putting Boris Karloff stuff on there like nobody's business.
Well, I was talking about the significance of 1968 with Rosemary's Baby and Night of the Living Dead, of course, but this movie as well was this jumping, like these movies transformed classic horror to modern horror. It prepared us for what was going to come with movies like Last House on the Left and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Exorcist and Black Christmas and Halloween. And that year, and maybe 1960 with Psycho and Peeping Tom, really kind of were the shift of the old guard and the new guard. Because horror really, Clive Barker had said that the rest of Ed Gein was what Americanized horror. When we got Psycho and Texas Chainsaw and all that, like now that is what horror is to a lot of people, is your neighbor and what they may be doing in that house. Yeah.
And that's the 60s brought us that too, because there's a lot of serial killers and things like that happening. So it really worked really well leading up to the 70s, and the Zodiac Killer, the Riddler in Gotham, and then
and Rosemary's Baby is also about what your neighbors are up to. Yeah. What danger that's there.
I don't trust these motherfuckers around me. Listen, my neighbor next to me has a shed that I see smoke coming out of once in a while. I was like, he's a single guy, lives alone. Why does he need a shed that he goes out to and there's smoke coming from it? It's a kill shed. I'm not talking bodies. Yeah. Anyway, if you haven't been here before, please hit the subscribe button, like the Facebook page, tell all your friends about the Horror Syndicate and how great of a host I am. Next week, we'll come back with another 60s movie, maybe 2, because I talked about maybe possibly covering 2, because there's a few we'd like to get to. On the 22nd, we're definitely going to be talking about the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Netflix. I just decided it. I will make it so. And anything else for you guys before we go? From you guys? So I messed up. Bad host. All right.
Evil
Well, what's that? Go ahead.
Evil dies tonight. Just want to remind you.
I don't even know what to say about that, except for I've been waiting 50 years for this night. Anyway, you guys have a great week ahead. If you are in the path of the snowstorm, be careful out there. I'm not leaving the house tomorrow, I don't think. I'm going to do some horror watching. I got 5 new horror movies. Not new. They're old, but I want to watch them. Candyman 3 is one of them. Anyway, thanks for coming out. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next week, Tuesday, 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern, because, you 3 of you guys are in the Eastern time zone, jerks. We'll see you next week. Have a great week.